Why don't you tell me a little bit about your childhood?
My childhood. I was born in the Bronx uh, a year after my parents arrived in the United States. They came from Europe. They were both Holocaust survivors. They met in a DP camp, which means the displaced persons camp, which is really a refugee camp in Germany. Um, a lot of Jews after the war had no place to go. So these large camps were set up for them to stay in until they can find a country to go to. So my parents were married, I think, in 1948. My sister was born in 1949 in this camp in Germany, and my parents came to New York in 1951, and I was born a year later.
Okay. So how much of an impact do you think that's had on the trajectory of your life?
What can I tell you? It's probably possibly the most defining part of my life. First of all, I've grown up with awareness of the Holocaust, which most people haven't. So I know what people are capable of doing to each other. Uh, I have to say that not too much surprises me anymore what people are capable of doing. And people are. The last time we spoke, it was about bullying, which is what my career is about. And people are so concerned about bullying, which is mostly name calling and rumors and stuff like that. That's nothing compared to what people are capable of doing to each other. And they feel justified doing it. But anyway, I've been a member of a very small group in the world, which is probably also the most hated group in the world, person for person. Mm. If you read the news about Jews and about Israel, you would think that we make up maybe a third of the world's population or 20% of the world's population. We're so influential. We're in Hollywood. We're in finance. We're in science. We win Nobel Prizes. So much of the news is about Israel and about Jews that you would think there are so many of us. We're 0.2% of the world's population, meaning 1 out of 500 people in the world is a Jew. Our numbers have never been terribly big. But nevertheless, we have survived after a few thousand years and not being in our country of origin, and we're still around. Mm-hmm. So it's quite an accomplishment, and it's some people consider a curse to be a Jew, but listen, I'm a member of a very small group. I consider this to be an important part of my identity.
Of course. And during that time growing up, post Second World War, with obviously the things that were coming out of Poland and Germany about the concentration camps, what was your experience as a Jew in the Bronx growing up? Was there still? I get the sense that obviously some of the hatred slackened slightly, but I'm sure that it didn't completely go away. Did you experience anything like that growing up?
I don't think it went away at all. Mm-hmm. When I was growing up, anti-Semitism was something we regularly encountered. Most of my elementary school history, I went to a Jewish religious school in my neighborhood, and I'd go to school and wear a yarmulke, a Jewish skull cap, and kids would attack us for it or throw rocks at us. I also had some non-Jewish friends, but for the most part, if you have to expect that kids are going to pick on you for being a Jew and even want to beat you up. Mm-hmm. I've been attacked physically a number of times. A couple of them were so bad that had they happened today, they probably would have made the newspapers.
Yeah.
But then it was quite common. You expected it.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, did your, I know that I've done interviews before with people who are descendants of Holocaust survivors. And I remember I spoke with one woman. Uh, she's a professor in Dalhousie. I forget her first name now. Her last name was Orr, Oore. And our conversation revolved around her trauma, her mother, actually. And so her mother was someone who didn't stop talking about the Holocaust, didn't stop talking about her experiences. Completely understandable, obviously, considering what she went through, but it had a great impact on her upbringing. She wrote a book, and I'm forgetting the title now, but her experience was that she was never listening well enough with her mother, because her mother was so traumatized from what she went through that when she would tell her these stories, her young daughter at the time would listen, but she could never listen the right way. Does that make any sense? Like, what was your experience with your parents? Were your parents, obviously I'm assuming they were greatly affected by what happened?
Yeah, my mother spoke a lot about the war years. My father didn't like talking about it.
That was her experience as well.
My mother, in a way, was also more fortunate because she was from a family of 5 siblings, and all of them made it through the war. My
Wow.
father was a family with 8 siblings, and he was the only one who made it through the war.
Wow.
The truth is, he had an older brother who was in the military and died before World War II, but he was the only one left from his family after the war. My mother's father passed away during the war, but her mother survived, and her 4 other siblings also survived.
It's heartbreaking. I mean that. Like, I mean, I when I hear these things, it's really difficult for me to comprehend. I grew up in a small town with a big family, and these things don't register with me very easily.
Yeah, I also don't know how people went through it. I can't imagine how I would have survived 5 years. Well, it's probably a little bit less than 5 years that they were actually out of their homes and running around. But for a few years, they were homeless. They never knew if they would survive to the next day. Uh, I can't imagine people going through that. But the truth is, there are places in the world where people today go through horrible things also, and I don't know how they do it. I'm so
Right.
used to the comfortable life we have today, a little bit of
Yeah.
hardship, and I'm suffering.
Yeah. No, of course. Yeah. Yeah. And I imagine that, especially for uh, descendants of Holocaust survivors and anyone who's been through something like a war, in their home, or their home country, it must be very difficult to, not necessarily difficult, but I've heard from even war photographers who come back and they hear people complaining about a small thing, and all they can think is like, what is your problem? Like, why are you complaining about this simple thing? Do you know where I just came back from? I talked to a war photographer, or he gave a talk to my class when I was in school. And was it Rwanda? I think he was in Rwanda. And he had, he came back and he had to teach himself how to have patience, I guess, because he couldn't understand why anyone would be complaining about such trivial things.
Yeah, today in colleges, they worry about microaggressions.
Mm-hmm.
Not like not even a macroaggression or a regular aggression, a microaggression. Like,
Right.
you're entitled to a life in which nobody says anything that can upset you in any way. This is
Mm-hmm.
our big concern today.
And I know that you attribute that to, I'm sure, maybe multiple things, but one of the biggest things that we've discussed before is the bullying movement, the anti-bullying movement.
Yeah.
Can you just talk about that a little bit, I guess?
You know, the anti-bullying movement began 21 years ago as in response to the Columbine shooting. The Columbine shooting was the most horrific thing that had happened in schools until that time. And it was perpetrated by two high school students who presented themselves as victims of bullying. But even before that, there was a series of school shootings in the United States, almost all committed by victims of bullying. And for a longer time, it was known that many kids who commit suicide are victims of bullying. And I, as a psychologist working in schools, had come across kids like that all the time. I worked with them intensively. So I understood why kids would want to do that if they're being bullied, to kill or to take their own lives. But Columbine was the straw that broke the camel's back, and the world decided we have to get rid of bullying. But most bullying is name calling. Mm-hmm. The great majority of events that are called bullying are insults. Some are rumors. There's social exclusion. There's a little bit of hitting and pushing that kids always do. But now we have this, we're so concerned about bullying, and rightfully so, because it is a problem and people do deserve to have a solution. But they're trying to make the solution be to treat bullying like a crime. It's something that people should not have to experience. The societal authorities are responsible for protecting children from bullying and apprehending and judging and punishing bullies. But if you think about it, most bullying is insults. It can destroy somebody's life if you're being insulted on a daily basis. It can make you absolutely insane. But you have to know how to handle it. Mm. But they're trying to do it by making it illegal. So right. That if you call me a name, oh no, you just bullied me, so I'm supposed to tell the school authorities, and now you get sent to the principal's office. Mm-hmm. Are you going to admit that you're guilty to the principal?
Well, no, yeah.
No, nobody wants to admit guilt, so you're going to defend yourself and try to blame me. Are you going to like me if I get you sent to the principal's office?
Of course not.
But my point is, though, they're treating these ordinary negative events of life as something that's horrible. Like now they're saying sticks and stones may break my bones, but the words can scar me forever or kill me. So they're teaching kids that insults are even more damaging than having your bones broken.
Yeah.
So it's out of proportion. We're taking these ordinary things that people can learn how to deal with by themselves, and we're treating them like a terrible crime, and then we wonder why people are getting so upset about insults.
Yeah, and one thing I noticed as well, and I do believe we discussed this before possibly, but the term bullying has become inflated to include so many different things. As you mentioned, oftentimes it can be just simply insults, but on the other end of that, I've heard the term extreme bullying being applied to a murder, and I just thought that was outrageous. That's a these are crimes. There are distinctions. We shouldn't call a murder or a violent assault extreme bullying. It seems like it's downplaying the significance.
Of course, it's greatly overused. There are even bullying experts who call genocide bullying. They call the Holocaust bullying. It doesn't even fit the criteria of bullying. The way bullying, what it's really meant to apply to is when you're being repeatedly picked on. Because a victim of bullying is being picked on all the time. So if you're bullying me, it means you're picking on me every day, you're insulting me every day, you're pushing me around or whatever you're doing. Murder isn't bullying, because if I murder you, I can't pick on you again.
Yeah.
It's not repetitive. A murder is a one-time act. And of course, it's ridiculous to call murder bullying, because then what you're doing is you're putting in everybody's mind that bullying is this terrible thing, kind of like murder. So even insults are put in the same basket as murder.